their community as ministers. He expressed concern with attempts to encroach on Manjago lands, urging the government to take concrete actions to resolve such land disputes. The presidential advisor on youth matters, Henry Gomez, who described himself as a proud member of the Manjago community, called for unity amongst this diverse community to attain their desired objectives. He said the Gambia has politically evolved, and as such, Manjago should empower President Barrow to give him another 5-year mandate to continue his program of development. The Minister of Fisheries and Natural Resources observed that this meeting has added significance because for the first time in the Gambia's history, Manjagos have stood to be counted rather than continue to be spectators in the political process. He attributed this to the new political climate created by President Barrow, which allows for popular participation of all citizens, irrespective of their ethnic or religious backgrounds. The Fisheries Minister urged his community to stand up for their rights as citizens and pursue legal processes to safeguard their lands against encroachment. He finally urged them to massively register for the upcoming elections and vote massively for President Barrow. The Minister of Regional Government and Lands, Musa Drame, reassured that government will look into the land issues across the country, noting that the problem was inherited from the previous government. He disclosed that government has appointed a lands commission to look into these issues and appeal for patience and cooperation. The President, His Excellency Adama Barrow, said he was delighted to receive such a distinguished delegation of highly respectable individuals with proven track records in their fields of work. He reassured the Manjago community that this government accommodates all Gambians irrespective of their ethnic or religious orientations, and therefore urged them to complement his government's development efforts. On the question of land disputes, President Barrow urged caution as the problem was inherited from his predecessor. He however said that his government has taken steps to address the situation, adding that he has no personal interest in the land debacle and would not take sides in order to allow the law to take its course. The President finally urged the Manjago community to stand up for their rights as Gambians and express his willingness to work with them to advance national development. The meeting ended on a high note with the President seeing off the delegation. Next came another delegation of the Trrc community, descendants of Mauritanians who worked and settled in the Gambia. They also came to show their support to the President and seek his intervention in resolving issues affecting their lives. Most important of these, according to Binta Job, is the discrimination against the Trrc community when it comes to acquiring national documents. This situation, according to Fatou Jara, has made life difficult for the community as they cannot get employment or showcase their language and culture in the media. Bilal Fall, a councillor in the Kanifi Municipal Council, decried the stereotypes associated with members of his community and appealed to government to help them undertake a census to determine their numbers. In response, President Barrow expressed immense gratitude to the Trrc community for the outreach and promised that his government will review the laws dealing with citizenship to eliminate discrimination against minorities. The President, however, challenged the community to use lawful means to assert their rights as citizens, saying that the Gambia belongs to all citizens, irrespective of their ethnicity. Mamadou Diallo, GRTS News.
Now, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs, has informed deputies on the introduction of Integrated Financial Management and Information System, IFMIS. The IFMIS project, which is to be introduced in local government councils, aims to improve public resource management with a view to strengthen government capacity to effectively manage public finance. P.S. Sanyang noted that the initiative is at advanced stage as the CEOs and finance officers have already received training on the system. Let's take a listen.
And the Accountant General and their ministry, parent ministry, Ministry of Finance, and also UNDP for this support. And I would also like to commend the councils, the CEOs, the finance directors, the procurement officers, all those people who have a stake in the IFMIS system. They organized a training for them. And I think there was a week, there was no CEO in each of the councils because they were all attending this training attentively to be ready for the rollout of the IFMIS system. What I always say is that we have no room to say that we cannot operate the system. It has been, a lot of systems have been provided earlier on to councils, and they failed because we were not operating them. But the IFMIS system is a non-negotiable or non-compromise system to the councils. So we have to make sure that we see it running such that we will be able to check and balance systems in the process of our activities will be adhered to. Receipting and payments will be done through the IFMI system, and this will enable councils to be able to bank their revenue and be able to plan them properly. And during the course of the last year, at the end of the year, in December, we had the review of the Finance and Audit Act as well, which all council took part, and then it's at the final stage to be taken to the executive and then finally brought to the National Assembly for confirmation. I'd like to commend the Accountant General and their ministry.
Well, that was the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Lands, Mr. Buba Sanyang, addressing deputies on the upgraded financial management system for municipal and area councils. Let's now turn our attention to peace-building efforts by young people and take a look at Trrc Senior Secondary School, where students converge for a day's peace seminar. The student gathering seeks to discuss national unity and strengthen community solidarity, as Khadijatu Jwara reports. The event, organized by the youth wing of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, seeks to advance peace and dialogue through youth advocacy.
Addressing the auspicious gathering, Amir of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, Baba F. Tarawale, said peace building should remain a fundamental priority to everyone.
Peace is very important, sacred, and blessed gift from Allah Almighty. Without peace, we cannot live our lives normally and carry out our day-to-day activities as we wish to. Human beings are tied to their fate, and people are willing to sacrifice whatever they have or can give in the way of their faith and hold their faith very dearly.
Amir Tarawale further added that the absence of peace severely threatens other human activities. Ahmadu Gay and Mamadi Sise of Trrc Senior Secondary School advised the Ahmadiyya Muslim Students Association for their commitment in promoting peace and stability in the country.
Solutions to our problems in this world is all about peace. Peace, understanding, peace, and living with each other in a peaceful way.
The president of Ahmadiyya Muslim Student Association acknowledged his association's willingness in promoting the welfare of people.
The need for creating peace now has become more important. Keeping this thing in view, Ahmadiyya Muslim Student Association, Trrc chapter, has started its efforts 4 years ago to promote peace and harmony in the society. This year, our theme is Interfaith, Peace, Tolerance, and Compassion.
Various speakers enjoined participants to remain as ambassadors of peace. Reporting for GRTS News, I am Khadijatu Jwara.
Now, the Director General of the National Agriculture Research Institute has encouraged farmers to adopt organic agriculture. Dr. Demba Jallo made the disclosure during an interview with GRTS, adding that organic farming will improve healthy food production as well mitigate the effects of climate change on soil fertility. More in this report.
Fertilizers, they will damage the soil, but the organic one will instead increase the soil biota, the soil organic matter and other things, soil organism, even the living organism have a role there. But these fertilizers, the chemical fertilizer will like counteract with that of the living organism in the soil. That is not good. This is why we have all these environmental problems because of the use of these synthetic fertilizers. So what we are trying to do here is to go back to the old way of doing things, where we completely rely on the organic materials, that we have in the environment, to help improve our soil fertility.
Your institution is key in the production of food security. Yes. What is NARI specifically doing towards this?
In the organic sense, we are using a lot of indigenous resources to control, for example, insect pests and so. If you look at the fruit fly, for example, we are challenging the effect of fruit fly using some botanicals, eucalyptus, hyptis, the neem leaves, and one very important one which is called oxymum cannon. This is purely organic. All you have to do is to grow the plant just around the premises of your orchard, and once it starts flowering, it will attract the fruit fly away from the mango to that plant, so that the fruit fly will not damage your mango. So these are all organic materials that we are using without any chemical, and we don't even kill them because they are also living things. They may not be useful on the farm, but they can be useful on the other part of the environment. So we are trying to discourage people from using pesticides that will kill all these insects and so.
You made mention of climate change, the impact and sustainability. Yes. How does this affect the work of NARI?
Because if for example, climate change is not controlled, even the new germplasm that we bring here will not succeed. We have seen rainfall is subsiding in this country year by year. Temperatures are increasing, and we are dealing with these living materials, crops, livestock, and so. So if you don't control, if you don't check climate change, it's going to be very difficult for us to produce. This is all we are saying. So let's grow more trees. Let's use bio inputs, using plant material to fertilize our soil. That's what we are saying. Otherwise, it's going to be very expensive. Even NARI as an institution, we will find it very difficult to buy some materials to amend the soil. Very expensive, like fertilizers, for example, very expensive, and they are not easily available. The coronavirus has come. You see, people have closed their borders. If you want to import something from even within the sub-region, from Mali, it's very difficult. To the Gambia, it's very difficult. So what we are saying is that we substitute these high-tech inputs that we get outside the boundaries of our country with whatever material that we have here. So we are going to, renew our research to be able to come up with very good recommendations for farmers to be able to, take care of their soils using these biomaterials that we have around, these chemical fertilizers.
Well, that was the Director General of National Agriculture Research Institute, Dr. Demba Jallow, talking to Grts' Usman Mane on the significance of organic farming. Moving on, Imam Buhari Foundation and partners have extended their eye screening services to the residents of Fonyi Block and its satellite communities. The initiative, as Majain Barrow reports, provided free eye care services to 100 vulnerable people, including cataract patients.
Stone mining in the Gambia is economically impacting on the life and livelihoods of many families, but at the same time causing eye problems for miners. Last week, Imam Buhari Foundation, in partnership with Resala for Development Charity Association, Usman Bunafat Charity Organization, and Goimam Eye Care Association, provided eye screening service for 121 people at Mariama Kunda, in which 33 identified cataract patients successfully went under eye surgery, costing the foundation and partners $82,500.
After doing the screening, those who are going to be referred to the hospital at Kanifing will go to the Kanifing hospital, and then they will get their treatment free of charge. That will be financed by our association. No cost is attached to it. It's free.
Speaking on behalf of Goimam Eye Care Association, the treasurer Pierre Mendy said many of the patients are having serious cataract diagnosis and can't go under operation.
We have sent some patients who are having cataracts, which of course some are operable and some are associated with other complications and they cannot be operated. We give them medication so that it can bring down or it can preserve their visions, whatever is left with them, because we cannot do anything about whatever is gone. But whatever they still have, we do that in order to preserve what they have.
Stone miners, including Selu Jallo and Ida Sanyang, all calls for more support, especially with protective materials to use during mining in order to avoid eye complications caused by sand particles. The National Assembly member for Fonyi Berefet, Sunkari S. Baji, applauded Imam Buhari Foundation and partners for coming up with such an initiative, adding that health is expensive.
Imagine how expensive health is, and then you sacrifice everything to come to the doorstep of my constituency to offer them very, very valuable health services. This is indeed recommended and is a big gesture.
Yankuba Bojang, a mine inspector, spoke on behalf of the miners, expressing gratitude to Imam Buhari Foundation and partners for coming to the rescue of these vulnerable miners.
The women who are working in the mines have a very difficult task to carry out. Dust and other illusions are very much difficult when they are operating. So we feel that healthcare that provides health on eye could come around and help them.
In complementing government's efforts towards the provision of primary health care services to the people, especially the vulnerable, Imam Buhari Foundation and partners are looking forward to provide more eye screening exercises after its Fonyi intervention, which targets 100 people. Majan Baro for GRTS News.
The Ministry of Petroleum and partners are on a nationwide campaign on the use of efficient cooking stoves. More on their latest engagement held at the Governor's office in the West Coast region is GRTS by Ibrahim Cham.
The Gambia has lost a significant amount of its forest cover, and this is due to the huge dependence on its resources, predominantly the woodland. The significant use of wood and charcoal has led to the depletion of the forest cover, exposing communities to windstorms and sporadic rainfall, one of the primary effects of climate change. For this large pre-urban center, Birkama serves as the heart of the West Coast region. The use of charcoal and firewood is prevalent, making the campaign by the Ministry of Energy and UNIDO for the use of efficient cook stoves, locally called Furno Jambar, and the Oryx gas bottle makes a perfect opportunity to promote the use of clean energy.
The firewood that is being born in the Gambia here in tonnage is very, very huge. And therefore this is going to also impact on the environment, especially on the forest cover. So therefore, as a result to subsidize this kind of destruction, we need to make some sort of innovative ventures like this to create this Furno Jambar. And if you look at the history of Furno Jambar in this country, I think West Coast region has been a pace setter in this thing through the community development on this ATU, Appropriate Technology Unit, that started this thing for some time ago.
Experts say women bear the brunt of using fuel wood and too much charcoal, which causes health complications and financial loss, making the Furno Jambar a good alternative. Hence, it burns less charcoal with little or no smoke.
For the last 10 years, West Coast wasn't like this, but now we don't have a forest. The only forests that exist in the region are the community forests. Giving women this access for us to go in for energy-saving stove or the gas, it's a good opportunity. It will reduce the amount of fuel wood that we rely on from the forest. And also the emission, not only the emission, but also the smoke that women have to go through during cooking. Some people are asthmatic, and if you are asthmatic, it's not okay for you.
250 Furno Jambars and 50 Oryx gas bottles were given to lucky winners.
And this one, the way it is made and the way it is built, the charcoal is less. You use less charcoal and you easily cook without much smoke, and the cooking goes on fine.
Protecting the Gambia's forest cover and saving our women from economic loss is the message throughout the campaign trail. Soma, the regional center of the Lower River region, will host a tour party on the 25th of January 2021. Reporting for GRTS News, I'm by Ibrahim Cham.
We now head to the North Bank region, where Momodu Ali Jaja Jail Foundation, in partnership with Focus Project in the United Kingdom, recently presented assortment of teaching and learning materials. The items donated to Kerjarga Nursery and Lower Basic School, Kuntaya Upper and Senior Secondary Schools is worth over $160,000. Famara Kanye picks up the rest of that story.
Presentation of books, school furniture and other learning materials worth $160,000 to the Trrc Primary School. The support came from the Focus project in the UK through their Gambian partners, the March Foundation. The materials are part of efforts to strengthen education in the district. Alhaji Usman Job, the president of the March Foundation, called on the people of the region to prioritize the development of the North Bank. He also thanked the management of Trrc Lower Basic School for their tireless efforts in supporting primary education in his village. Receiving the materials, Abdul Job, head teacher of the Trrc Primary School, thanked the March Foundation for the foresight. He noted the significance of the donated materials as it will encourage the culture of reading among students in the school.
These have come to a time whereby really it was on a high need of the kids in terms of reading, spellings, and even though they are mode of learning. And really, it really drilled them on coming to assist them in a way whereby their motivation will be more in depth online.
The entire Ministry of the Education sector is proud of this foundation because, as already been alluded to in my father's statement, that government alone cannot do it. So we have to come forward to support government. And when we support government, we are supporting ourselves. Because people fail to understand who is government. We are the government. So, if you want to wait for every single thing that government must come to do it, it will come one day, but it's going to take time. So what Mohamed Ali Trrc Foundation, Trrc Job Foundation has done is something that is very much appreciated and recognized by the education sector. And on behalf of the Honorable Minister, my permanent secretary, and the entire staff of the ministry, we are very much grateful. And we say thank you to Mohamed Ali Trrc Job Foundation for coming to our aid.
Chief Alpha Khan and Awa Gay, the ward councillor of the area, both thanked the foundation for the support, whilst challenged the school management to take good care of the donated materials. The governor of the region, Lamin Sedikan, said the government of the Gambia will continue to support education in the country. He equally called on the people of the region to continue complementing the efforts of government in all areas of development. Former Chief Jim Fatma Job called on donors to help the school to have a proper fence and a borehole to make the environment conducive for learning. The March Foundation has been supporting several activities in the Jokado district in the areas of education and community services. For the news, I am Famara Kanye.
Let's take our first break now. When we return, we will look at news beyond our borders. Stay with us. Welcome back to Grts Weekday News with me, Aminata Isanyang. In the internationals, we shift our attention to China, where 11 miners trapped underground has been lifted to safety. 10 others remain trapped 600 meters underground and one has died. The group has not been able to escape for 2 weeks after an explosion in a gold mine in Sanding province. Miners who were rescued were in dire conditions, with some rushed to hospital for medical attention. More in this report.
This mine worker can be relieved to be out in the open air. For 2 weeks, he was blocked hundreds of meters underground, like 21 other miners. An explosion threw debris into the mine's elevator shaft, making it impossible to get out. Meanwhile, the water started rising. If it were not for the hundreds of rescue workers who rushed to the site, drilled holes, sent down food, water, and medicine, eventually pulling him and several of his co-workers out, they could have died. This graphic shows what rescuers have achieved since the explosion. They located 11 miners out of the 22 working at the time of the explosion, some 580 meters down. Rescuers located a 12th man in a shaft 100 meters lower. For days, they communicated with them and continued to drill. As they descended to fetch the man, they found another stranded miner they had not been in contact with on their way down. Seen on these images, the man couldn't even stand up. Rescuers have little hope for the 9 other miners they have had no news of since the explosion. Accidents are common in Chinese mines because safety regulations are not always enforced. Still, the overall number of deaths has dropped in recent years as authorities increased supervision.
It is not a regular activity you will expect a group of elderly women to pursue, but Kenyan grandmothers at Nairobi slum are taking self-defense classes with every degree of seriousness. This is because in Kenya, 1 in 5 victims of sexual assault is a woman aged over 60. The attackers are preying on the elderly because they believe older women are less likely to have HIV. More in this report by the 51% program of France 24.
In front of a crowd of elderly spectators, Jane is simulating an assault.
No! 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 No!
She's teaching the club self-defense.
If someone comes to assault you, to attack you, they could also want to rape you. You must not stay silent. I myself was a victim of rape. I was assaulted in 2007. 6 months later, a woman offered me self-defense lessons. At that time, several women spoke up and told me that they had experienced the same thing.
The group was formed from these meetings. In the slum of Korogocho, attacks are frequent and no one is safe. Every month, the self-defense course welcomes students aged 75 to 100 in a room usually used to dry clothes. Regardless of their fitness levels, the ladies take part in some physical activity. They learn how to summon the courage to call for help in the event of assault, often committed by much younger men.
Young men go after older women because they think they won't have sexually transmitted infections. That's why they wait around for us in the slum, to attack us.
This subject is extremely taboo. Getting together allows the women to talk about it. Njoki has been living alone since her husband died 2 years ago. This makes her vulnerable.
I thank God. Thanks to him, I'm well. And I was able to learn a lot of things. In particular, how to protect myself.
After class, Njoki's walk home is just a few meters. But at night, it is easy for an intruder to pass through the thin metal door. That's what happened to her a few weeks ago. But she managed to scare the attacker away.
The other women and children should learn what we've been taught, so that they can protect themselves as well.
She says the number of violent incidents has decreased in Korogocho thanks to the self-defense courses. She hopes that similar projects will now spread across Kenya.
Well, still in the internationals, we shift our attention to El Salvador, where the world's highest homicide rate in the world was registered 6 years ago. 1 in every 1,000 people have been murdered that year in a shocking statistic that took many by surprise. Now the situation is much better, but the questions asked by the world remain why. As we find out in this report, the result is due to shady deals signed by the government of El Salvador and the country's most notorious gangs. More in this report.
Handcuffed and put on display for the Salvadoran media. It's an image police want the public to see. El Salvador has recorded a drastic drop in homicides since young 39-year-old President Nayib Bukele took office in 2019. In downtown San Salvador, the capital, the atmosphere has indeed changed.
Pues específicamente en este año es que ha bajado bastante.
Que antes no se podía venir uno ni a sentar. Aquí era bien peligroso antes. Y mira hoy todo el mundo está en fiesta acá.
The many gang clashes fueling El Salvador's endemic violence have dwindled in the past 2 years. But many are skeptical of this respite. Among them is Pastor Mario Vega, who is well known for his work with young delinquents.
En los barrios no ha ocurrido ninguna dinámica, ni de parte del Estado, ni de parte de las pandillas en sí, sino que la baja en homicidios se debe a un acuerdo que hay entre el actual gobierno y la alta dirigencia de las pandillas.
But the secret is out. Carlos Martinez is an investigative journalist. He helped to make public 100 official documents, which proved very embarrassing for the government.
Estos documentos describen una serie completamente anómala de visitas de funcionarios de gobierno a la cárcel de máxima seguridad para sostener reuniones con líderes de la Mara Salvatrucha 13, que es la pandilla más grande de El Salvador.
They reveal how the government offered special favors to improve life in jail. In exchange, gang leaders have agreed to rein in their men and support the president's party in the upcoming legislative election. A pacted truce which could be broken at the first disagreement, unleashing more violence. Yet according to the head of the National Police, everything is under control.
En gobiernos anteriores han habido iniciativas de las treguas, de trabajar conjuntamente con los grupos criminales, pero en lo que es el liderazgo del señor presidente Nayib Bukele, yo doy fe que a mí en ningún momento me han dicho, mire, va a ir a trabajar con líderes de grupos criminales.
All the negotiations, truces, and secret deals show one thing. Criminal gangs have managed to become key players in Salvadoran politics.
Well, that does it for this edition of the Grts Weekday News. But a recap of our top stories before we take a leave of you. President Barrow receives in audience the delegation of Manjaco and Trrc communities at the State House in Banjul. The Director General of the National Agriculture Research Institute has called on farmers to adopt organic agriculture for improved healthy food production. Residents of Fonyi Block and its satellite communities has received free eye screening services courtesy of Imam Buhari Foundation. In the internationals, elderly women at the slum of Nairobi are pursuing self-defense classes as more sexual attacks continue to surge by young men with vested interest. El Salvador's crime rate has been drastically cut, but not without criticism on an alleged government shady deal with notorious gangs. Well, viewers, that was all in this edition of the Grts Weekday News. Thanks for the pleasure of your company. Do stay with Grts and enjoy the rest of our programs.
That's 92, I think, to 94.
Likodage 92, Jembe 94.
And in 94, I was again transferred and redesignated as Director of Finance and Administration to the newly created National Intelligence Agency.
In 94 nak ci lañ ma doli yobuat ci buntu bi nga xamne moy seytu wali kobar gi ci buntu liggéey kay bi ñu sos es moy National Intelligence Agency NIA.
There I stayed for
another
3-4 years, and in 1997 I traveled.
1997.
Mr. Sambu, as Director of Administration and Finance at the NIA, you are de facto number 2 at the NIA at the time, correct?
Correct.
Wow.
And in that position, you reported only to the Director General.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, Mr. Sambu, perhaps you should allow the interpreters to speak before you respond to my questions. apart from the Director General, you are the most senior person at the NIA at that time, 1994 to 1997, correct?
1994 ba 1997 lu dut ki nga xam ne mooy Director General bi yow mi yow la fa sa maxaama gënoon a kowe.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, proceed please and continue about the description of the positions you held.
Waa eggalil nga wax ñu place yi nga xam ne moom nga yore woon.
In 1997,
ci atum 1997,
I proceeded to the United Kingdom
ci laa dem United Kingdom
to pursue another master's degree course.
ci xeñtu nag lu jëm ci wàlli njàngam maxama master's degree
in management development.
ci wàlli ni nga xamee dool nañuy toppatoo lépp lu jëm ci wàlli liggéey.
In 1998, I came back home.
ci atum 1998 ma ñib si waat.
And was transferred and designated to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
ci lañ ma dal di toxal nag ci ministre bi nga xam ne moo saytu wàlli doxalin bi réewi Gambia ci biti.
And I was posted to the Gambia High Commission in Lagos as Deputy Head of Mission.
ci lañ ma yóbbu nag ca Gambia High Commission bi nekkee ca réewi Nigeria fu ñu xamee Lagos nga xam ne maa topp nag ci kilifa ga ñu fa teg.
After 2 years, in 2000, I was recalled.
gannaaw ñaari at ci atum 2000.
And I came back home.
ci lañ ma oo ma ñib si waat.
And I was posted to the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare.
ci lañ ma yóbbu nag ci ministre bi saytu wàllu wér garam geeg nekk ni nit ñi.
As Deputy Permanent Secretary.
ma nekk fa nag di maqaamam Deputy Permanent Secretary.
In 2002.
ci atum 2002.
I was terminated.
ñu dal di ma dàq.
Without reason.
te amul nag benn luñ ma ci tegal ne looloo tax.
And I went home.
ma dem ñibbi.
I stayed for up to 2004.
ma toog fa nag ba atum 2004.
And I got a job at the Independent Electoral Commission as Director of Operations.
ma am liggéey ci buntu liggéeykaay bi saytu mbiri wote ak kontem carte yi réew mi di Independent Electoral Commission ma nekk borom kër gi saytu wàlli doxalini bi liggéey boobu Director of Operations.
In March 2006.
ci weeri March atum 2006.
I was again absorbed into the system.
ci lañ ma dal di delloowaat ci liggéey ba.
And appointed Acting Director General of the National Intelligence Agency.
ñu fal ma nag di kilifa gi nga xam ne nii moo topp ki jiite ci buntu liggéeykaay National Intelligence Agency.
8 months, I think, into that job.
juróom-ñetti weer ci liggéey boobu.
I was again terminated.
ñu dal di ma dàqaat.
Without reason.
te waxuñ ma dal lan moo tax.
And I went home.
ma dolli ñibbi.
Till June 2009.
ba weeri June atum 2009.
Again, I was recalled.
ñu dal di ma woowaat.
Offered a contract.
ñu jox ma contract liggéey.
And appointed Permanent Secretary number 1 at the Office of the President.
ñu def ma Permanent Secretary number 1 ci office yi président bi.
That's a very high position, you would admit.
Loolu maxaama bu foor la de.
I would admit now, I didn't know what it was when I was going.
Even then, it would have been the highest permanent secretary position, next to the Secretary General.
Ca jamono booba sax mooy woon maxaama bi gën a foor ci maxaama permanent secretary ndax yaa toppoon ci Secretary General bi.
Putoon ci Secretary General. Why ci permanent secretary yep kon ka moom won permanent secretary office president kañ moom moo ci gën a kowe toppa ci Secretary General. So the point I'm trying to make is being permanent secretary number 1 for office of the president, that would make you one of the most senior permanent secretary next to the Secretary General. Would you agree?
Lima wax mooy su fekkee ne def nañ la permanent secretary number 1 bon yow yaa gën a kowe ci maxaama permanent secretary tegu rek ci kaw ki nga xam ne mooy Secretary General bi.
That was next to the Secretary to Cabinet.
loolu moo toppoon ci ki nga xam ne nii mooy Secretary to the Cabinet.
Oftentimes, Secretary to Cabinet and Secretary General is one and the same person. But when you separate them, perhaps yes.
Léegi li ci ëpp nag Secretary General Secretary Cabinet yi benn la daan doon waaye comme xaajale nga ko bi tey noonu la.
Okay. So, but you would nonetheless accept that it was a very high position.
It was indeed.
Proceed, please. What happened after that?
In October of the same year, 2009,
2009,
I was posted to the Ministry of Defense as permanent secretary. That's where I stayed for 3 years, I think. After a second stint as on contract as permanent secretary, halfway into the second contract, I was dismissed.
Again.
Halfway into the 2-year contract of the second contract, I got dismissed.
Yet
on
again.
Contract.
Yes. Forced dismissal on contract, but not forced dismissal from your engagement or employment with Gambia government. That would have been your third dismissal from Gambia government.
Lead counsel, if you would allow me to explain.
Lead counsel,
a dismissal and termination are different.
Dismissal and termination,
it has subtle legal differences in terms of the benefits. But let's just say, in general parlance, your contract, your engagement with government was ended.
Removal.
You were removed for the third time.
For the third time.
And that's the point I was trying to make.
Lead counsel is very right.
Lead counsel.
And what happened after that?
I had to leave the country surreptitiously. Surreptitiously.
Okay.
And sought political asylum in Senegal for fear of my life.
As far as you know, was there any credible threat to your life? Which warranted your surreptitious disappearance from this country? Into exile in Senegal.
Lead counsel.
Lead counsel.
My position was exceptional, sort of, in the sense that I did not have a minister. Minister of,
as permanent secretary for which ministry?
Ministry of Defense.
For Ministry of Defense.
Ministry of Defense.
Minister of Defense was...
There was, of course, a de facto minister at the time. Somebody who oversaw the Ministry of Defense, correct?
Benen ministre bo xamne koku mo daan setlu mo daan tek loxo ci ministre of defense bobu.
The de facto Minister of Defense was the President of the Republic.
Minister bobu non nga xamne na mo doon baye xel nak lu jëm ci mbiri karange mo doon President bu Republic bu Gambia.
So, in essence, as permanent secretary, Ministry of Defense, you were dealing directly with Yaya Jammeh.
Bon mun nañu wax ne comme ka ya nekkon permanent secretary ci ron liggéey ka ministre bi saytu karange réew mi bon dafa melni yow dal ci ron Yaya Jammeh nga doon liggéey.
Through the Secretary General.
Deug la jaarale ko nak ci ron Secretary General.
Okay. And your services were terminated.
Dismissed.
Yes. the determination here is not the term of art. This is just the general meaning of the word. You were removed, to use your word. You were removed. So, in all that, tell us why you perceived a threat to your safety and security.
Legi nak wax ñu lan mo tax dal olulo won ba tax nga daw dem laxu ji benen rew.
Working with Yaya Jammeh was one of the most challenging and difficult things
liggéey ak Yaya Jammeh moo nekkoon li nga xam ne ni moo gënoon a nekk lu
experience in my life.
ci li nga xam ne ni dal jànkuwante naa ko ci suma dund.
Yaya Jammeh read through every single line you wrote in the file.
Yaya Jammeh dafay bàyyi xel lépp loo xam ne ni dal dinañ ko bind ci file.
Full stop, comma, semicolon.
Full stop, comma, ak yeneen.
I believe he thought he...
Semicolon.
Continue, please.
I believe he thought he knew better than anybody else.
Yaakaar naa moom dafa foog ne moo gën a xam ñëpp.
In the English language.
ci làkki angale.
Even with the help of my desktop spell checks.
ak même si suma ni may seetee ni ñuy bindee si furi ci suma computer bi.
Two giant dictionaries, robots and advanced learners.
ak kay ci dictionary bi nga xam ne fa la ñuy seetee baati angale yi.
Complemented with a book of quotes.
ak yenn yi nga xam ne ni ñu ngi ànd ak ay léebu.
Didn't satisfy him.
loolu yëpp du ko daan doy.
Yaya Jammeh also did not appreciate people taking initiatives in his place.
moom it du daan nekk koo xam ne dana daan doyloo nit ñi ñuy doxal ay xalaat ci wàllam.
He took offense at those things.
dafay jàppee loolu tooñ.
And he personalized issues.
daf dee moomale boppam yenn mbir yi.
Rather than concentrate on the details in the file.
ni bàyyi xel nag li nga xam ne loolu la ñu bind ci file yi muy pour lu muy jëflanteen.
He would reply on the folio sheet personal insults and very, very, very degrading language.
dana tontu nag ci anam goo xam ne ni anam gu xastu la ci li nga xam ne ni mooy file boobu noonu su koy delloo.
It would take a very patient and tolerant and mature, sober person to focus on the job and forget about those things so as to push the file and get the job done.
nga nekk ni koo xam ne ni ku mot nga koo xam ne ni tamit ku mën a muñ nga pour nga mën a continuer ak liggéey boobu.
For us to better understand the personality of Yaya Jammeh, I mean, you have worked with him extensively. You've worked in his government in the highest offices, NIA, Defense. You've been boss of NIA. That brings you into very close contact with him. You are head of Permanent Secretary Defense. Very close contact with him. You are also Permanent Secretary Ministry of Health and others. So you've worked with him extensively. Help us understand Yaya Jammeh. Let's decode him. Make us understand his personality.
Legi, pour ñu mëna xam Yaya Jammeh ban façon ngeen nit la xam nañ ne liggéey nga ci ronam ci anam yu ci bari liggéey nga NIA Permanent Secretary Defense nekkoon na sa boss nekk nga koo xam ne tamit jokkoo nga moom torop liggéey nga ci liggéeykaay bi saytu wér gu yaram bi nekk fa Permanent Secretary am na place ma xama yu foor yoo xam ne am nga ko ci ron Yaya Jammeh léegi soo ñu bëggee wax kan mooy Yaya Jammeh ak naka la mel naka la.
Lead counsel, I watched Dr. Sen.
Lead counsel seetaan naa Dr. Sen
from
muy
the
wax lu jëm
psychological
ci
point
mbiri
of view here.
Yaya Jammeh ci ni nga xam ne noonu la ko jàngee ci mbiri xel.
And his analysis of Yaya Jammeh.
ak li nga xam ne ni loolu la sottandeku ci Yaya Jammeh.
He had many points correct.
am na fa fànn yu bëri yoo xam ne ni dëgg la fa am.
But unfortunately, he did not have personal contact.
waaye nag nekk koo xam ne ni
did not work with Yaya Jammeh.
daan am jokkoo ak Yaya Jammeh liggéey ak Yaya Jammeh.
That is why we're putting this question to you. Tell us from a first-hand experience, first-hand personal knowledge of Yaya Jammeh.
motax nak yow mi gëna joko mom ñu lay laaj yow lan nga xam yow ci sa bop ci mbir Yaya Jammeh.
He was very temperamental.
Nekkoon na koo xam ne ni ku yomba mer la.
A witness testified here.
Amna sédé bu wax fi né.
I think it was Ibu Jaju.
Fokna Ibu Jaju la.
I'm just plucking this from memory.
And
he said one of the Egyptian chefs that Yaya Jammeh had described him as follows. Now happy, now angry.
That is why I said, well, maybe the Egyptian did not know the exact English word to use.
Maybe Egyptian bobu amut bati angale bi nga xamne mom la warona jëfo.
But it was synonymous to temperamental.
Waye nak nekkon na lo xamne ku jégale ku yomba mer.
Added to that,
di ci yok nak ne
I would say he was schizophrenic.
He's
schizophrenic. Dafa am febari bopa.
Wow. Dafa am febari xel.
Febari xel, wow.
He was, I think he had pathological problems. I don't want to be a psychologist. Somebody who would change in the next moment while you are sitting with him. Change decisions or change his mind. You wouldn't know what to expect from him. So if he called you in his office, you sat down, you are taking notes, you're discussing. The minute he'll be smiling, the next minute. And that affected his decision-making process. You would go to him with a file. Instead of dealing with the file, he would derail and and you would come down with the file not knowing what to do because there are time frames for certain things in the files.
Wouldn't you call his attention to the issue at hand?
You can only do that through the Secretary General.
But Mr. Sambu, here you are, very senior official in government, you sitting with the president to deal with an issue of national interest. Do you have to wait to go out and tell the Secretary General that we did not discuss this, it ought to have been discussed? Why couldn't you tell the president that, sir, this is what brought me here, let's deal with the matter?
Why, Mr. Sam, you yangi ni ame mahama bukowe nyonga ci president bi pour waxtana mom bir mo xamne itel rew mi la bu fekkene li nga bëgg amé ci mom amé loko da jar na ngay xaar be demat ci secretary general bi wax ko ne li ak li day la bëggona waxtana mom way mënuma ko amé ci mom lutax yow ba nga jakarlo mom rek nga ne ko sa ñu ne li la bëgg ñu waxtané ngeen waxtané ko.
Lead council. Ya Jammeh bour la won. Daf doon def bopam ni bour.
He is the one who call you and you answer to him. You cannot go to him directly and tell him that you want to see him.
If he also dismisses you, you go down, you find yourself in such a situation, you don't know what to do. And the SG might not even have the courage to go back and remind him. He will dismiss the SG just like you.
Secretary General
People have testified here on that issue, in like manner. So you wait.
We just want to understand, Yaya Jammeh, from your own perspective. You are the one working with him. We want to know what you went through, how you were dealing with him, so that we will better understand the decisions that were taken.
dañ buga xam Yaya Jammeh bu baaxa baax jaarale ko ci yow ni nga xam ne noonu nga daan jëflante moom naka nga daan defa moom ak naka la mel ci yow yow ci sa wàlli gis-gisi boppa lañ buga xam Yaya Jammeh naka la meloon ci yow.
So that's why we ask this question.
moo tax ñu laaj la ko.
I understand.
Now, dégg naa.
Personally, were you terrified of him, of Yaya Jammeh?
yow ci sa boppa yow mii ci sa boppa Yaya Jammeh danga ko ragaloon.
No.
Déedéet.
I'll emphatically say no.
Danaa dëgëral ne déedéet.
You look at Yaya Jammeh depending on the mood he was in.
dangay seet Yaya Jammeh ci anam gi nga xam ne noonu la nekkee woon.
And you chose the right time to tell him what you felt.
nga seet na waxtu wi nga xam ne nii moom nga koy wax yow li nga xam ne loolu nga yëg ci moom.
If you did it at the wrong time, woe betide you.
bu koy fee nag bu fekkee ne wax nga ko ci jamono boo xam ne nii ute neexut xol bi neexut.
Woe betide you, but coono gu bari mun na la ciy fekk.
da nga am tolof tolof.
But on the contrary, if you found him in a very good mood, you might move out of his office with your pockets very full.
léegi nag bu fekkee ne fekk nga ko nag si xol bu neex man nga amaan nga génn ak poche yu fees.
You never know.
dara doo ci xam.
In a sense, what you're saying is that you have to calibrate. You have to judge his mood and decide how to deal with him at that particular moment.
Indeed.
mu ngi mel ni foog nga xalaat seet nga natta jamono jooju moom ci yan anam la nekk nga mun a jëflante moom ci anam yooyu.
But even at that, fear was always one underlying factor that was always there for you and possibly most public officers who dealt with him.
waaye nag terewut yéen ci seen bopp ak yeneen ñi nga xam ne ñoo daan liggéey te jëflante ak moom anam yi ñu daan jëflante moom yëpp dañ ko àndale woon ak ragal.
I will ask a rhetorical question, if you will allow me, lead counsel.
mu ne dana la laaj nag laajte boo xam ne nii bu dëgër la. fekkee may nga
Would you fear somebody
ndax doo ragal nit koo xam ne.
who has a button
boo xam ne dafa am
on his right hand below his desk?
boo xam ne mu ngi amee ci ron taabulam bi ndeyjoor bi.
mu ngi fa am benn bouton.
benn bouton.
Depending on his whims and caprices.
mu wéeru rek ci li nga xam ne nii mooy ay xalaatam.
ak lu ko neex.
ak lu ko neex.
Would press that button and call the soldiers in.
bu ko fee mu press button boobu rek o soldat yi ñu dugga si.
And he would just say, take him away.
te dafay wax rek yóbbu leen ko.
Those soldiers, excuse me, with all due respect to them,
te soldat yooyu noonu ak cër bi ñu leen jox yëpp.
were like robots.
ñoom it ñu mel ni comme ay machine.
Yes sir, and that's all.
yes sir rek te def nañ li mu wax.
In the car next time.
yeneen nañ la.
downstairs
sànni la si oto bi.
off you go.
jël di
They
la
have only one direction.
dañu am benn place rek lañu lay jëmale.
Mile 2 prisons.
mooy mile 2 prison.
Otherwise known as.
ñu xamee ko beneen tur.
The hotel, the 5-star hotel.
5-star hotel.
You were in the system. You headed NIA. You headed defense. You were close to president. What did you understand that 5-star hotel to mean?
yow nekk nga ci liggéey bi jiite nga NIA jika nga place bu fort ci wàlli kaaraange réew mi am nga maxama yu bari yoo xam ne yore nga ko fi yow 5-star hotel boobu ñu jël ko tuddee ko kaso bi naka nga ko gisee.
Council, I have traveled the world.
Lead Council tukki naa ci àdduna bi.
I have been to 5-star hotels.
gis naa 5-star hotel ni muy mel.
I know what they are.
te xam naa ni mu mel.
Mile 2 prisons is nothing near a 1-star hotel.
Mile 2 prison nag jegewut sax 1-star hotel.
So, isn't it rhetorical, if I may, or is it a sarcastic description?
Sarcastic.
Of what a 5-star hotel is, reversing the luxury in a 5-star hotel to the horrors that you would find in Mile 2 prison.
ndax nekkul mbiri coxor ci ak wax ju ñaaw joo xam ne di nga jël rek du tolloo 5-star hotel ak ni moo mel ak bànneex beeg taranga bi nekk ci 5-star hotel nga jël ko di ko méngale ak kaso boo xam ne ay mbugal ak ay torotaande rek moo fa am.
Exactly so.
loolu la.
If I may.
How would you feel, or how did you feel then, as permanent secretary, having to go to Yaya Jammeh's office to discuss issues with him? Could you give us an understanding of how it felt?
naka nga daan yëg yow nga nekk permanent secretary war a dem toog office Yaya Jammeh pour waxtaan ak moom ay mbir nag loo daan yëg jamono jooju.
As you are on your way going to his office.
mel ne boo jógee ne yaa ngaa dem jublu ji nag office am loo dee yëg.
In my position as permanent secretary, I'm a technical advisor.
Permanent secretary la nek na ko xamne ku daan xelal la.
My job was to give him objective technical advice.
Suma liggéey mo doon diko jox nak ay xelaat yu wër
on issues raised.
Ci fan yi nga xamne ni ñu ngi koy ekati pour wax.
I go straight to him.
Damay dem ci mom rek.
And tell him what is.
Di wax ko nak lan la.
It is up to him to accept what I said or not.
Dafa des ci mom rek pour mu nangul mako wala déet.
You've described your job. My question is, how do you feel? Or how did you feel then when you had to go to Yaya Jammeh's office now and again? What was that feeling when you are up carrying your file, going to Yaya Jammeh's office to discuss things with him?
Waaw loolu nga wax noonu mooy sa mbiri liggéey ni moo demee man li ma la laaj mooy yow bu waxtu jotee nag ba nga xam ne gàddu nga sa file war a dem nag ca Yaya Jammeh pour waxtaanee moom li nga xam ne moo nekk ci file bi boo jógee ba jéggi jublu ji ca Yaya Jammeh loo dee yëg.
I personally didn't feel anything.
Suma bopp de duma yëg dara.
Clean conscience.
Dama de am xel bu rafet rek.
And with Yaya Jammeh, you look at him right in the eyes.
Yaya Jammeh dang koy xol ci
Look at him right in the eyes and tell him what you feel.
Nga wax ko nak li nga xamne ni
Make sure that what you tell him is the fact, that is the technical objective answer.
Na nek nak li nga xamne lu ngeen koy wax moy deug ji.
But wasn't it the case that each time you had to go there, you had to feel somewhat paranoid, not knowing what the consequences of your meeting would mean for you, for your own safety and for your own security?
Waa ndax du dee nekk nag ne yow jamono boo jógee rek ne yaa ngaa dem ca Yaya Jammeh du nekk jamono joo xam ne yaa ngay xalaat ne man day xawma ci ban anam laa koo fekkee ak suñu waxtaan fan lay mujjee.
ak lang fay jëlee lu moo mel ci yow ndax dina doon lu baax pour yow ndax mun nga see mujjee sax dem kaso ga.
Loolu kenn xamu ci dara danga dis sa bopp nga sa bopp Yàlla.
No one knows you. Leave yourself with God. And you enter with your file. Whatever you receive, that's yours.
But was it that bad that whenever you had to go in there, you think in terms of such terrible consequences, like Lofa Gobe Garko? Like anything can happen.
Ndax loolu nekkul mbir mu doy waar saa yoo jógee rek pour dem jàkkaarloo ak moom yaa ngi xalaat lan nga faa jëlee.
I think he enjoyed putting people on pressure and on their toes.
Yaakaar naa ne daal daf dee bànneexu bu fekkee ne nag mu ngi teg nit ak notel.
So that they would fear him.
Bu ko defee nag pour ñu mun koo ragal. Bu ko defee ñu jébbalu ci ronam.
But wasn't that in fact the situation? Wasn't that the reason why we had a dictatorship?
Of course, yes.
Ndax loolu nekkul ne moo taxoon ba ñu am koo xam ne mu daan doxalee nguuri jaayam doole ci kaw nit ñi.
It was lead counsel.
Loolu la woon lead counsel.
And wasn't it in fact the case that the public service generally from top to bottom were generally, not all, but generally terrified at Yaya Jammeh?
Ndax loolu sax warta tax ba ñi nga xam ne ñoo daan liggéey ci nguur gi du ñëpp de waaye ñi ci ëpp yëpp dañu ragaloon Yaya Jammeh.
That is the characteristic of a dictator.
Loolu nag moo nekk ne mooy jikkoy dictator.
Was that the characteristic of Yaya Jammeh?
Ndax loolu mooy woon jikko Yaya Jammeh.
I think so.
Loolu laa yaakaar de.
You told us about his minutes, the minutes that he would write. Were these minutes respectful? Were they technically sound, or were they just the rantings of a person who had no respect or regard for the people he was dealing with?
léegi boo leen yóbbuwaan seen file yooyu ba woon ko ci ron kayit yi nga xam ne moom lay binda yim fa daan binda ndax lu tegginu la wala lu jaadu la wala lu méngoo ak li nga xam ne moom la war a binda ak cëral boo xam ne cëral na ko li moo binda.
Not the list, the council.
Do you want to give us examples? I see you taking out a file.
I
would like to make some references if I find the document.
Please go ahead.
Please allow me.
Ma'am.
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, it would just be convenient to take the break now. All right, and give Mr. Sambu the time during the lunch break to sift through his material, and then we come back at the time you may designate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good suggestion. Witness, we will come back at 3 o'clock. We'll have a lunch break now. Okay, we come back at 3 o'clock. Meeting's adjourned.